you're tuning into something different, something deeper. Welcome to a space where the unseen becomes seen, where the patterns beneath reality are decoded. This isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the mechanics of belief, perception, and the multidimensional truths shaping our world. If you've ever felt like an outsider looking in, questioning the systems you're told to follow, you're in the right place. This is The Outcast, the Pattern Podcast. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a concept we're calling talismania?
Talismania.
Yeah, it's a term that kind of hints at this really fascinating idea, spiritual enslavement.
Intriguing.
Definitely. Our exploration we're doing into external worship and this whole notion of spiritual enslavement.
So a bigger series then.
Exactly. Over these dives, we're going to be, building a framework to really try and understand these patterns.
Okay.
And speaking of patterns, we're actually really excited because we have an upcoming course. It's designed specifically to give you the tools to recognize the, let's say, unique wisdom being shared across these deep dives.
Well, that sounds useful.
We think so. So definitely keep an eye out for notifications about that, about how to spot these patterns. It should be pretty insightful.
Good stuff. So today, it sounds like we're diving into some fundamental metaphysical ideas.
That's the plan.
Focusing on talismanic magic, spirit enslavement, and specifically how things like light, frequency, and symbolic systems might play into all this.
Right. And this connects back, doesn't it, to themes we've touched on before?
It does, yeah. Particularly in our deep dive pattern series, there's some definite overlap.
Absolutely. And our exploration today really comes from a conceptual discussion titled External Worship, Spiritual Enslavement.
Okay, so that's our main source material for this dive.
Yep. Think of this as, well, your curated pathway. We're trying to help you understand some pretty intricate concepts without you having to wade through all the raw stuff yourself.
Makes sense.
Our aim really is to offer a fresh perspective on how these, external influences might be impacting your inner well-being, maybe even your sense of spiritual sovereignty.
So valuable insights, hopefully, whether you're just curious or really seeking deeper understanding.
Exactly. We think it'll offer some real food for thought. Okay, let's dive in then, starting with this idea of the heart resonance field and light.
Right. So what's fascinating here is this concept that both the world around us and us as individuals, we're surrounded by something described as a heart resonance field.
A field generated by the heart, or resonating with it.
The text seems to imply both, perhaps. And it introduces a really thought-provoking point.
Yeah.
Light. You usually think of light as positive, right?
Yeah.
Clarity, illumination.
Yeah, absolutely. Good vibes, generally.
But the text suggests light might also be a tool used in what it calls spiritual enslavement.
Okay, whoa, that sounds paradoxical. How could light be enslaving?
It does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? And the text then draws this really interesting parallel. It looks at our physical eyes.
Okay.
Think about the retina vasculature.
Yeah.
The blood vessels linked to heart health and the photoreceptors. They take light and literally translate it into the images we see, the way we perceive reality.
Right, it's biological technology, basically, converting light into data for the brain.
Exactly. And the text proposes that spirit, metaphysically speaking, is also a kind of impressionable light.
Impressionable light.
Yeah. And it needs the soul to act as a sort of lens, much like our physical eyes need a lens to focus light. The spirit needs the soul to communicate or even just exist, manifest in some way.
Huh. So the soul focuses the spirit light. That reframes things quite a bit, doesn't it? How we think about our inner selves.
It really does. And our interactions with the energetic environment around us.
So if we run with this idea, spirit as impressionable light, then spiritual enslavement is presented as what? An energetic thing.
An energetic phenomenon, yes. Specifically, the absorption of what's described as the wrong type of light.
The wrong type, like tuning into a bad radio station, maybe. A frequency that messes things up.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
Tuning into a frequency that isn't beneficial, that maybe disrupts your own resonance field.
Okay, that's a huge foundational concept. Let's build on that. How does this connect with ancient symbolism and these light portals you mentioned?
Well, the discussion pivots pretty quickly to ancient Egypt. A civilization always associated with a heightened wisdom, mysteries.
Sure, pyramids, hieroglyphs, the whole deal.
Right. And the pyramid symbol is key here. But it's not just the single pyramid shape itself. Imagine two pyramids, base to base. What do you get?
A diamond shape? Like an octahedron, maybe?
Exactly, diamond shape. And that shape or even a similar, maybe skewed four-sided form, like a trapezoid. The text identifies that as a portal.
A portal, okay. So these geometric shapes are symbolic entry points.
That's the idea presented. And it points out maybe start noticing how often these shapes appear symbolically, even like above doorways in movies or TV shows.
Huh. You mean like those transom windows sometimes, or architectural details?
Could be. Or just purely symbolic representations. It makes you question if it's just aesthetics or perhaps something more intentional, a visual cue.
Interesting. So what's the link back to light then?
Well, the crucial thing is how light interacts with these visual portal representations. The text notes that when light enters through our eyes, and it reminds us, interestingly, that we also have light-sensitive cells in the heart.
We do. Okay, news to me.
Apparently so, according to this source. So when light comes in through these channels, it has the potential to actually alter our perspective, our way of seeing.
Because light isn't just illumination, is it? You said it's frequency, energy.
Precisely. Light is frequency, it is energy. And the text adds another layer, the act of looking, of consciously focusing our attention to see something.
Yeah.
That act is also described as a projection of our energy outwards into the things we're observing, especially things we hold strong beliefs about.
So looking isn't passive reception, it's an active energetic exchange.
That really underlines the power of where we put our attention.
It really does. And this leads into thinking about the journey of light itself, how it apparently undergoes this process of fragmentation.
Fragmentation, breaking apart.
Yeah. The text describes light starting out in pulses, originating from what it calls the Great Spirit.
Okay, a source point.
Right. But as this light emanates outwards and interacts with this concept of a torus field, like an energetic donut shape around things.
Right. We've talked about that structure before. As light enters that field, it supposedly becomes more and more fragmented, more diluted, less coherent than its source.
Okay, so it starts pure, then gets kind of chopped up or diffused as it travels through this field. And then the text brings in primary light and secondary light. What's that about?
Primary light, as it's described, is basically that very first visual hit when you open your eyes.
Like the photons hitting the retina first thing in the morning?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
That immediate sensory input that hits your mind. And it can really set the tone for the day, can't it?
Oh, for sure. Waking up to bright sun feels totally different from a gray, rainy day. That initial visual definitely impacts mood.
Exactly. It shapes that initial state.
Yeah.
And then secondary light is framed as the metaphysical reaction to that primary observation.
So not the light itself, but how we process it internally.
Yes. How that initial input then sort of permeates our consciousness.
Yeah.
Influencing our internal energy, maybe our thoughts, feelings, even how we interact with the world externally. It's like the internal ripple effect.
Okay. First hit, then the internal echo or resonance.
You could put it that way. And the interpretation of this secondary light becomes really significant when we encounter things like sigils and symbols.
Ah, okay. Connecting back to the symbols now.
Right, because as we talked about in that New Age dark pattern work deep dive, these symbols, they don't necessarily have inherent power on their own, but they can gain power through our own inner light.
Through our attention, our belief, the energy we pour into them.
Precisely. Our focused attention fuels them. And the text even mentions the digital version of this, meme magic.
Right, where an image or phrase gets repeated and shared so much it takes on a life and energy of its own through collective focus.
Exactly that. It gains a significant energetic charge.
So it follows then that our own internal light, our mind, body, soul, spirit, that whole complex that can be influenced, maybe even, as the text says, fractured by these artificial images we take in.
That's the implication. The text brings up things like hypnosis and mind control as maybe more extreme examples of how externally presented light or visual patterns can deeply affect our entire inner being.
Affecting us from the inside out, based on outside input.
Right. And to make it more relatable, it uses the example of, say, watching a horror movie.
Oh, yeah. I know where this is going.
Most of us have had that, right? An image, maybe a really disturbing one, just gets stuck in your head. You see it when you close your eyes. Maybe it even affects your sleep.
Definitely. It lingers.
That perfectly illustrates how visual input can embed itself in our minds, influencing our internal state long after the actual watching is over.
Which really drives home the point about being mindful, conscious about what we feed our eyes and minds, especially if it has the potential to, alter our soul, as the text seems to suggest.
It's a serious consideration. And this fracturing of our internal light, as it's described, is what causes us to resonate with specific things, certain symbols, specific beliefs, maybe even old memories.
So the fractured light makes us more susceptible or tuned in to certain frequencies.
It seems so. And the text emphasizes that the quality of the energy we receive from these symbols or beliefs isn't uniform. It depends on us. It depends on our individual positioning, like our current mindset, our existing beliefs, our baggage, you could say, and also how open or resistant we are to the particular frequency that symbol or idea is carrying.
So it's a very personalized interaction. It's not like everyone gets the same dose from the same symbol.
Exactly. It's filtered through our own unique energetic makeup and current state.
This all feels like it's building towards, well, understanding how belief systems take hold.
Yeah.
And then the text states it pretty directly. Signs, symbols, sigils, they form the foundation of belief systems.
They're like the building blocks, the visual anchors.
And people can invest in these belief systems, how does it put it? Mindlessly.
Passively.
Often passively, yeah. Without really digging into where they came from or the subtle, maybe not so subtle ways they influence us.
Okay. And this is where the trap of talismans comes in.
Seems to be. And it's presented as broader than just, a lucky charm you carry.
Right. Not just a physical object.
No. The concept presented is about how spirit energy itself might be harvested somehow,
Right.
and then embedded. Harvested and embedded into what?
Into talismans, yes. Ancient ones, modern symbols too, but also into entire ideologies, belief systems, maybe even cultural narratives.
So these things become containers or conduits.
Conduits, exactly. Potentially carrying what the text refers to as enslaved spirit energy.
Wow. That's a heavy concept. Enslaved spirit energy channeled through symbols and beliefs. Does it give examples?
It does mention magical texts, like the Lesser Key of Solomon.
Ah, the Goetia, with the lists of spirits and their sigils.
Right, which historically involves practices related to summoning spirits and, well, binding them, in a sense, to perform specific tasks. So there's a direct historical link, at least in esoteric traditions, to this idea.
Okay, that grounds it a bit more.
And then the text says something interesting. It doesn't just list symbols and say, this means that. It encourages you, the listener, to start discerning these things for yourself.
So developing your own sensitivity to them.
Kind of. It suggests that once you grasp this foundational idea, how light enters us, how it fragments, you can begin to recognize how these talismanic images, these symbols, might be functioning, like memory traps almost.
Memory traps for spirit frequency.
So that's the phrase used, yeah. Memory stored for spirit frequency. It's quite a thought-provoking way to put it.
It really is. And then the discussion broadens out even further
Hmm.
to language itself.
Yes, suggesting that written language, especially symbolic alphabets, isn't just arbitrary. It's also built on this foundation of fractured light.
How does that work?
It specifically points to ancient symbolic languages. Judaic, Phoenician, Runic alphabets are mentioned.
Okay, the really old symbol-based ones.
Right, and it proposes they actually originated from the way light interacts with geometry, specifically that trapezoidal geometry we talked about earlier related to the portal shape.
Oh, so light-hitting shapes creates patterns.
Creates fundamental patterns, yes. And these patterns become the symbols, the letters, the runes, which then form words, build languages, and ultimately construct the belief systems.
And these beliefs get etched into reality somehow.
Etched into the tiles of the torus field, is how the text puts it, like engraving information onto this energetic structure.
And then it stays there.
No, it cycles back. Through frequency resonance, the beliefs inscribed in the field resonate, attracting or manifesting corresponding realities. It represented as this continuous loop.
Light fragments, patterns, symbols, language, beliefs etched in the field resonates back into reality, influencing light perception.
It's a picture of a really interconnected, dynamic system, everything influencing everything else based on light, frequency, and symbol.
Okay, let's try and recap some key threads. We've really dug into this connection between light and spirit, haven't we?
Definitely. And the idea that external visuals, symbols, aren't just passive decoration. They can actively influence our internal energy.
And we've introduced this core concept, talismania, framing it as a potential kind of spiritual enslavement operating through this mechanism of fractured light and the belief systems built upon it, where we'll keep building on this foundation, digging even deeper into these pretty intricate ideas.
So definitely more to come.
Absolutely. And maybe as you go about your day after listening to this, just take a moment to consider, how might becoming more aware, more conscious of the light you consume?
You mean the images, the information, the symbols we interact with daily?
Exactly. How might paying more attention to that impact your own feeling of inner freedom, your sense of spiritual sovereignty?
It's a potent question.
It is. Maybe
Why?
just observe. Observe your own reactions to the visual stuff, the symbolic information you encounter over the next few days. See what you notice.
It's definitely worth contemplating, and we really encourage you to stay tuned for the next parts of this deep dive as we continue pulling these threads.
And don't forget to watch for those notifications about the upcoming course. It'll offer even more tools to really get a handle on recognizing these patterns we've started mapping out today.